Hello, I'm Attu Jamir and you're watching News Pulse on Hornbill TV. The central government has formed a 7-member committee to suggest withdrawal of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act 1958 from Nagaland and asked to submit its report within 3 months. The Ministry of Home Affairs, North East India Division, in an office order on December 26, stated that in order to review Afspa in Nagaland, a committee is constituted. As per the MHA order, the terms of the reference of the committee shall be to review the application of Afspa in Nagaland and make suitable recommendations within a period of 3 months. To get to know more about this, we'll be joined by our colleague Elle from the newsroom. So thank you so much, Elle, for joining us today as well. Right, so moving on with this discussion today, could you please tell us more about what does forming, when it comes to repealing of Afspa, what does forming a committee mean and what does it entail?
Yeah, that's a question that we have been asking to, and I think even the people would like to know what it means, because we are talking about a legislation that would require a legislative tool and a constitutional process in the parliament. So we are talking about a law, the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, and it is not something that is in the power of a committee or an extra government body to actually recommend its repeal. It can be done only by the parliament. However, right now, as the government has already instated a committee, I'll just give you some details about it. It's practically a body that is not really a fact-finding committee, but it will give. It is like an oversight board of a particular organization. So an oversight board is an organization of an organization that gives advisory. It gives advice. For example, it guides the company in a certain way. It takes charge of a certain statements or certain actions or deeds of a company and guide them along a certain direction of the organization. So the panel that has been formed by the government is similar to that. However, this time it is for a specific purpose, and that is to look into the conditions, the circumstances, and also they will go through the legislative processes that will be involved in, for example, addressing a thing such as the ambush in Mon. So they'll be making recommendations to the government and they'll be submitting it to the government, and after which it will be in the court of the government, the central government, to take action in regard to whether they want to repeal the law or not.
Alright, so in this situation, is forming a committee to make recommendations really required?
That is a very good question, actually. Like I have mentioned earlier, this is a subject that can be tackled only by the parliament, only by the elected members of the parliament, and forming a committee at this time seems a little bit absurd. Let me put it this way. There are various tools which the government uses often. Some are called delay tactics. Some are tools that you use when you want to have a little space so you can take a decision on some matter. Some call it a delay tactic. I don't know. But at this point, what the people feel is that their emotions need to be appeased right now. Their anger needs to be appeased right now. And it is understandable that the central government decided to set up a committee which is temporary, which is a little delay to the whole upheaval that is going on, which is a delay to the emotions that have been floating around ever since the ambush took place. So it is not really something that is constitutionally required, but I would say it is something that would appease the situation right now.
Adding up to that, we would also want to know if forming this committee would speed up or slow down the process of repealing Afspa from the state.
Yes, a little bit. There will be a little bit delay, but then it's not necessarily in terms of the legislative process. It will be in terms of appeasing the circumstances and the emotions surrounding the community following the ambush, for instance. And delay, yes, on the side of the government, like I've said before, it's something like a delay tactic, because there are legislative processes that are available for you to actually enable you to repeal a law or enact a law. There are legislative processes. So in the case of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, there are two ways you can actually repeal it. You don't need a panel or a committee to repeal a law here. The Parliament can actually bring in a bill to repeal the law. Actually, they can make a bill and repeal the law. The second method is you can promulgate an ordinance which will be subsequently replaced by a bill within 6 months. There are two ways about it. There are no two ways. Whether a committee recommends or not, it's in the there's a legislative tool that you can actually work on repealing it or not, and it is with the Parliament. So the process will involve about 6 months. So I wouldn't really say it's a delay on the part of the government, but at least on the part of the sentiments surrounding the situation in Nagaland, especially in regard to the act, yes, it is a little bit of a delay.
Also, Al, would want to know more about this committee. Who will be constituting this committee and what will they actually be doing? Could you please brief us more on that?
Yeah, as I've mentioned earlier, they will be studying the case regarding whether it will be feasible for them to recommend a central legislation that gives powers to the military organizations in the Northeast, that gives them a lot of power to act in anti-insurgency operations in the Northeast. So this is, for the military, it's a very important law. So they'll be studying all this. What if we repeal the law from the Northeast? What will be its impact? What will be its implication? Will it help the peace process? They're going to study all this together and they will make recommendations. To your questions, there are a lot of state level officials. There are military officials and police officials, of course, and there are invitees from the Ministry of Home Affairs who are members of this committee too.
Also, what about the civil society organizations or those organizations that were present in the whatever happened there as well? So will they be included as well?
Right now, from the order of the Home Ministry that I saw, I didn't see any organizations from the civil communities, from the civil organizations, and from the tribal organizations, from Mon, for instance, or even Naga organizations that represent the Pan-Naga plethora. Right now, we don't have any members from the community organizations.
All right, Del, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Atu.